Hello and welcome to Wisdom and Wealth. If this is your first time here, we explore timeless principles for a richer, more fulfilling life. If you find value in this content, please give us a like and consider subscribing to help us grow this community. Today, we're diving into a question that many of us over 40 grapple with: if life is temporary, why worry so much? It's a question rooted in Buddhist wisdom, designed for the anxious mind, and it addresses a paradox that many of us face. There are nights when we lie in bed, the lights are off, but our minds are racing. Thoughts come in waves, one after the other. What if I lose my job? What if something happens to the people I love? What if I fail at this new venture? It's a quiet fear that many of us carry, a background hum of anxiety that never quite goes away. This quiet fear shows up in everyday life, not just in big, monumental moments. A delayed message from a loved one, a change in plans for the weekend, a silence that lasts a little too long during a conversation, all these seemingly small things can trigger anxiety. It's not because we're weak or somehow deficient, but because we care deeply. And deep down, we're often afraid of losing what we love, our health, our relationships, our security. Yet, we all know, intellectually, that things change. Nothing lasts forever. We've heard this mantra since we were young. People come and go from our lives, bodies age, and relationships shift and evolve. But just knowing this intellectually doesn't mean we've truly accepted it in our hearts. There's a significant gap between what we understand with our minds and what we feel in our hearts. And that's the paradox at the heart of our anxiety. We intellectually grasp that life is temporary, yet we live as if it shouldn't be, as if we can somehow freeze everything in place and prevent loss. Consequently, we suffer not just from actual loss, which is an inevitable part of life, but also from the constant fear of loss that always lingers in the background, clouding our joy and peace of mind. Are you getting some insight already? If so, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to our channel for more content like this. The philosopher Montaigne once famously said, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." Our minds, in an attempt to protect us from future pain, often imagine the worst-case scenarios, hoping to prepare us for any eventuality. And that pattern runs deep, deeply embedded in our biology. Early humans who stayed alert to potential danger had a far better chance of survival. That same ancient system now reacts to things like emails from the boss, political news, or awkward silences during family gatherings, treating them like actual emergencies, triggering our stress response. But instead of keeping us safe, this constant state of alert often keeps us anxious and exhausted. Worry pulls us out of the present moment and drains the joy from what's right in front of us, the beauty of a sunset, the laughter of our grandchildren, the simple pleasure of a good meal. The more we try to plan, to control every aspect of our lives, the more unsettled we feel, because control is always, ultimately, limited. We often treat uncertainty like a problem we can solve with enough planning and effort, when really, it's simply a fundamental aspect of life that we need to learn to live with, to accept, and even to embrace. This, my friends, is a universal human experience. Students, parents, seasoned professionals, elders, we all worry, although in different ways and about different things. Even those who intellectually understand the concept of impermanence still struggle to truly let go of their attachments. The core issue isn't that life changes, the issue is how we relate to that change. And that's precisely where Buddhist wisdom begins to offer us a path forward. Not by denying the reality of change, but by helping us to meet it with more clarity, more acceptance, and less debilitating fear. If you are enjoying this insightful exploration into Buddhist wisdom, we'd be grateful if you gave the video a like and subscribe to our channel. The Buddha observed that worry and suffering don't arise solely from what happens to us in life, but from how tightly we hold on to things, from our resistance to change. When we resist change, we essentially suffer twice, once from the loss itself, and once from our own refusal to accept it, to adapt, to find a new path forward. In the next segment, we'll delve deeper into how Buddhist insight reveals the underlying roots of this clinging, this attachment, and how we might begin to hold life more gently, even as it changes, even as it inevitably brings us both joy and sorrow. Let's talk about impermanence and understanding the changing nature of life. In Buddhism, impermanence, or anicca in Pali, isn't just a passing observation or a philosophical concept, it's the fundamental foundation of how reality actually works. Nothing stays the same, not even for a single moment. Our bodies are constantly changing and aging, relationships shift and evolve over time, and even our emotions rise and fade like waves on the ocean. The Buddha described this reality with stark clarity, stating, "All conditioned things are impermanent. They arise and they pass away." Seeing this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Long before modern science confirmed it through observation and experimentation, the Buddha had already seen, through his own deep introspection, the world is in constant motion. Everything that is built will eventually break down. Everything that is born will someday dissolve and return to its component parts. But if change is so natural, so inherent in the very fabric of reality, why does it unsettle us so deeply? Why do we resist it with such force and tenacity? The Buddha pointed to a simple, yet profoundly powerful answer: we resist impermanence because, at a deep level, we don't truly believe it. We might say we understand it intellectually, but our habits and our actions tell a different story. We live as if the people we love will always be around, healthy and vibrant. We chase success as if we could somehow hold it still, forever capturing that feeling of accomplishment and security. That illusion, born from avijja, or ignorance, is deeply embedded in how we perceive the world. And when life inevitably moves, as it always does, we suffer. Not because of the change itself, but because of our deep-seated unwillingness to flow with it, to accept its natural course. This resistance is what Buddhism refers to as attachment, upadana in Pali. It's the mental grip that tells us, don't let this go. This is mine. This must stay just as it is. But the tighter we hold on, the more anxious we become. A new wrinkle appearing on our face, a lost opportunity at work, a goodbye that arrives far too soon. All these seemingly small changes feel incredibly sharp and painful because we expected, at some level, that things would remain steady, predictable, and unchanging. But, as we all know, they don't. As one ancient teaching so eloquently puts it, from desire arises sorrow. From desire arises fear. If one is free from desire, there is no sorrow, so how could there be fear? This, in essence, is the heart of the Buddha's first noble truth, dukkha. Often translated simply as suffering, it's really the deeper feeling of unsatisfactoriness that arises from trying to find lasting happiness in things that, by their very nature, cannot last. Now we are halfway through this journey to discover peace with the Buddhist doctrine. Please like and subscribe to see more videos like this. Not everything in life is inherently painful, but everything is fragile. Even joy can turn bitter and sour when we desperately try to freeze it in time, to hold on to it forever. A beautiful flower eventually wilts and fades. If we're deeply attached to its bloom, we're bound to feel grief and disappointment when it inevitably fades and dies. Another layer of this suffering stems from how we perceive ourselves. We tend to think that there's a solid, unchanging me behind all our experiences, my body, my plans, my future, my identity. But the Buddha taught anatta, the concept of not-self. What we call I is not a fixed, permanent entity, but rather a constantly flowing stream of changing conditions, thoughts, moods, memories, physical sensations, biological processes. And when life doesn't align with that self-image, when our plans are disrupted or our expectations are shattered, we naturally feel threatened and destabilized. But if we can learn to see the self more lightly, more fluidly, then those experiences lose some of their sting. Neuroscience is now beginning to confirm this ancient wisdom. The brain is constantly rewiring itself, adapting to new experiences and challenges. We're not frozen in time, we're fluid, dynamic, and ever-evolving. And that's not bad news, it's incredibly freeing. Even modern science echoes this fundamental truth. Our bodies are constantly replacing cells every second. Stars are born and they die. Nothing in the known universe is standing still, everything is in constant motion and flux. So, when we expect our lives to stay fixed, when we cling to our roles, our comforts, our routines, we're actually going against the very grain of how nature itself operates. If that makes sense, like and subscribe and we can learn to incorporate the Buddhist doctrine to every aspect of our lives. So, if impermanence is truly everywhere, why is it still so incredibly hard to live with? Because intellectually understanding change isn't the same as being at peace with it. Most of us grasp the idea that things change, yeah, we get it. But when that change touches something we deeply love, something we hold dear, we tense up, we resist, we try to push back against the inevitable. That's precisely why the Buddha didn't just explain the truth of impermanence, he also laid out a path to navigate it skillfully. The Four Noble Truths don't just describe suffering, they offer a clear pathway through it. First, we acknowledge that suffering exists. Then we identify what fuels it: clinging, attachment, and misperception. Third, we recognize that freedom from suffering is possible. And fourth, we commit to walking the path, training our minds to meet life with more clarity, more compassion, and less fear. So, the truth of impermanence doesn't ask us to give up on life, to withdraw from the world. It asks us to see it more clearly, more honestly. Not as something to lock down or preserve, but as something to be met, moment by moment, with honesty, with care, and with an open heart. That shift alone can begin to soften worry, to loosen its grip. Because when we stop expecting life to stand still, we stop being so shocked and thrown off balance when it inevitably moves. And from that place, clearer, lighter, more grounded, we begin to ask different, more profound questions. If clinging causes suffering, how do we actually let go? What does it truly mean to live with presence instead of resistance? That's where the real path begins, not in abstract theory, but in daily practice. Letting go. Buddhist practices to overcome worry. Letting go doesn't mean we stop caring. That's a common misunderstanding, a harmful misinterpretation. In Buddhism, to let go means to stop clinging, to release our tight grip on things. It doesn't mean we withdraw from life, become apathetic, or stop pursuing our goals. It means we stop squeezing life so tightly that we make ourselves suffer. Acceptance, in this context, is not passive apathy. It's not shrugging your shoulders and saying, "Oh well, nothing matters." It's the active courage to meet life as it is, without constantly trying to force it into what we wish it to be. Imagine, for example, that you're facing a health challenge, maybe even a serious illness. Acceptance doesn't mean you ignore treatment or give up on getting better. It means you do what's wise for your health, you seek medical care, you follow your doctor's recommendations, while simultaneously dropping the added mental and emotional burden of resistance. Why me? This shouldn't be happening. It's not fair. The physical suffering in the body is real, but we often double or even triple it with our mental resistance. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once poignantly said, it's like holding a hot coal in your hand. We burn, not just because the coal is hot, but because we stubbornly refuse to let it go. The more we resist uncertainty, the more it tightens its grip on us. But when we gently acknowledge that this too shall pass, when we accept that everything is in a state of flux, we shift from a state of panic to a state of presence. Acceptance clears the fog of resistance so we can see what's truly needed in each moment without being pulled in every direction by our fears and anxieties. As you continue to seek wisdom and wealth, be sure to subscribe to our channel. That's where mindfulness comes in. Worry lives in the future, constantly projecting us into hypothetical scenarios. What if I fail tomorrow? What if my investments crash? What next? Mindfulness, on the other hand, brings us back to the present moment. When we're mindful, we pay close attention to what's actually happening, right here, right now, this breath, this step, this simple task, this conversation. The Buddha placed mindfulness, sati in Pali, at the very heart of the Eightfold Path, because it's the gateway to sanity, the antidote to the runaway thoughts that fuel anxiety. Simple practices can make a huge difference. Eating mindfully, paying attention to the flavors and textures of your food, walking mindfully, feeling the ground beneath your feet with each step. When a worry arises, like, what if I fail tomorrow, you practice noticing it as just that, a thought. Not a prophecy, not a threat, just a passing cloud in the vast sky of the mind. Neuroscience is now confirming what the Buddha intuited millennia ago. Mindfulness reduces reactivity in the brain's fear circuits, helping us to step out of the endless loop of anxiety. But mindfulness alone isn't always enough. We also need insight, a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. And this is where meditation deepens the path. In Vipassana, insight meditation, we observe how sensations, thoughts, and feelings arise and fade away, like waves on the ocean. You sit quietly and feel your breath. Each inhale begins and ends. Each sound arises and passes away. Over time, we stop just knowing about impermanence intellectually, we feel it viscerally, in our bones. And when we do, our grip on things starts to soften. Wisdom, panna in Pali, is seeing clearly. It asks simple but cutting questions. Is this worry truly worth losing my peace over? Can worrying actually change the outcome of this situation? Often, the honest answer is no. As the Buddhist scholar and philosopher Shantideva wisely said, if a problem can be solved, solve it. If not, worrying won't help, it will only make things worse. Wisdom brings us back to what we can actually influence in our lives, our response, our values, our capacity to care for ourselves and others. You can't stop change from happening, that's beyond your control. But you can choose to show up with clarity and presence, with compassion and resilience. Are you getting peace and wisdom out of this channel? If so, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Another powerful path to release from worry is compassion. Worry often locks us into a tight, isolated circle of self-concern, my future, my problems, my fears. But when we look around and see that everyone, without exception, carries their own burden of uncertainty and challenge, we start to breathe differently. We don't feel so utterly alone in the storm. Helping others, offering a listening ear, volunteering our time, all these acts lighten our own minds. The Buddha consistently encouraged metta, loving kindness, not just because it's morally good, but because it profoundly frees us from our own self-centered anxieties. The more we turn toward others with genuine care and compassion, the less room fear has to grow within us. So, what does letting go actually look like in everyday life? It's usually not dramatic or earth-shattering. It's gentle, subtle, and persistent. Like holding a bird in your hand, not too tight, so you crush it, but not too loose, so it flies away. You work with care and dedication, but you don't stake your entire self-worth on achieving a specific outcome. You love fully and deeply, but you know that you can't stop time, you can't prevent change, and you can't control the choices of others. You plan, but you accept that plans may change, often in unexpected ways. When worry arises, as it inevitably will, you pause. You breathe. You remember, this too is impermanent. And then you gently ask yourself, what can I do right now that is actually helpful, that aligns with my values, that promotes well-being? Sometimes it's a concrete action. Sometimes it's simply a softening, a release of tension. But every time you let go, even a little, you taste freedom. Even monks who have dedicated their lives to spiritual practice have to practice letting go daily. It's not about never worrying, it's about not letting worry drive your life, dictate your choices, or cloud your joy. As the Buddha said, there is no fear for one whose mind is not filled with desires. The less we cling, the less we fear. And in that spaciousness, something deeper begins to emerge: peace, clarity, courage, and a quiet sense of resilience. If you are enjoying this insightful exploration into Buddhist wisdom, we'd be grateful if you gave the video a like and subscribe to our channel. Let's focus on embracing change, finding peace and meaning in impermanence. We often assume that if nothing lasts, then nothing really matters, that life is inherently meaningless. But Buddhist wisdom turns that thought completely around. Because nothing lasts, everything matters. If life were permanent, if our relationships were guaranteed, if our health was unshakable, we might very well take it all for granted. But because life is fragile, because everything is in a constant state of flux, we're invited to show up more fully, to appreciate each precious moment, to invest in what truly matters. That's the hidden gift of impermanence. It sharpens our presence, it deepens our appreciation, and it fuels our compassion. A beautiful moment isn't less meaningful because it ends, it's meaningful precisely because it ends. If a flower bloomed forever, we'd probably stop noticing it, we'd become accustomed to its beauty. But knowing that it won't last makes us pay attention, to truly see it. We pause, we breathe it in more deeply, we marvel at its delicate beauty. The Buddha's final words, spoken on his deathbed, were not gloomy or despairing, but grounded and empowering. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with heedfulness. It was a reminder not to cling, not to become complacent, but to live awake, to see that this fleeting life is worth caring about, worth investing in. Not despite its impermanence, but because of it. Impermanence doesn't make life meaningless, it gives life urgency, clarity, and a profound sense of beauty. Every conversation could potentially be the last. Every ordinary moment, a quiet breakfast with your spouse, a shared glance with a friend, a walk in nature, becomes extraordinary when we truly know that it won't repeat exactly the same way again. Even philosophies outside of Buddhism, like Stoicism, echo this truth. Memento mori, remember that you will die, not to make you fearful, but to help you live honestly, to prioritize what truly matters. As the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wisely said, loss is only change, and change is nature's delight. When we stop treating change as a problem to be solved or avoided, we begin to treat life as an unfolding story, not as a static possession to be guarded and controlled. So, how do we live with this constant change without falling prey to crippling anxiety? Not by pretending that things won't hurt, not by suppressing our emotions, but by cultivating a quiet trust within ourselves, a deep-seated knowing that we can meet life, moment by moment, with steadiness, with courage, and with an open heart. Instead of bracing ourselves for every wave, we learn to ride them, to navigate the ups and downs with skill and grace. We stop trying to stop the ocean, and instead, we learn to surf. This kind of trust isn't blind optimism or wishful thinking, it's based on lived experience, on discovering, through trial and error, that we don't need everything to go our way in order to be okay. We begin to trust the underlying process of life, to recognize that joy and sorrow will both come and go, and that we can stay centered and grounded through it all. Like bamboo bending in the wind, we learn that flexibility is strength, that adaptability is resilience. When we don't break every time something shifts or challenges us, worry begins to loosen its grip. And when worry softens, when the mental chatter subsides, space opens up within us. What fills that space? Compassion, presence, purpose. When our mind is no longer frantically spinning about the future, we can finally be truly here, with the people in front of us, with the life we already have. And strangely, counterintuitively, that awareness of impermanence makes us more loving, not less. We realize that everyone we meet is also facing change, loss, and uncertainty, and in that shared human experience, there's profound connection. We stop chasing fleeting things like status and perfection, and start investing in what truly matters: kindness, honesty, depth, creativity, and personal growth. And now we are at the end of our discussion about the Buddhist doctrine. Remember, if you love it, then like and subscribe to our channel. One step at a time, we shift from grasping to giving, from fear to love. Of course, this insight isn't just an intellectual concept, it needs to be felt again and again, to be embodied through daily practice. That's why many Buddhist teachers recommend starting the day with a quiet morning reflection, a simple acknowledgement: I am alive today. This day is a gift. Not to be dramatic or overly sentimental, just to be real. Because when you truly remember that life won't wait, that time is precious, small things begin to change. You forgive sooner, you argue less, you hold the people you love closer, and you stop postponing the pursuit of your values and your passions. And when decisions arise, you ask yourself, if I had only 1 year to live, would this still matter? Would I still be so concerned about this? Often, the things we obsess over shrink under that light, revealing their relative insignificance. The mind prioritizes, it focuses on what truly matters. And slowly, a new rhythm sets in, not a frantic rush to accomplish everything, but a gentler urgency to live well, to live fully, now. As the Buddha so eloquently said, better to live one day seeing the rise and fall of things, than 100 years without ever seeing it. To see impermanence is to wake up, to awaken from the slumber of illusion. And in waking up, we begin to suffer less, not because life stops changing, but because we stop fearing change. So, why worry so much if life is temporary? The Buddhist answer is simple, yet profound: you don't have to. Worry is not a life sentence, not an immutable part of your personality. It's a habit, a pattern of thought that can be seen, understood, and gently released. Life's impermanence isn't here to torment us, it's here to show us what truly matters, to remind us to love deeply, to live honestly, and to let go when it's time. Yes, we can't hold on to each passing moment, but we can be fully present for them. And when we are, something shifts. The fear fades, the mind clears, and in its place, we discover a quiet strength, a deep-seated resilience, and a kind of peace that no change can ever truly take away. Thank you for joining us here on Wisdom and Wealth. And until next time, keep seeking wisdom, keep cultivating wealth in all areas of your life, and remember to let go and live fully in each precious moment. Thank you for watching, and now is a great time to like or subscribe for more content like this.